first of all, let's just tackle the issue of what Theresa May once, many years ago now, about 15 years ago, when she was addressing the Tory party conference as Tory chair at the time. And she said that the party had the image of being the nasty party. Do you think the Windrush affair has brought that back? And in which case, is Sajid Javid the right man to turn that around?
Well, I think it has certainly not helped because a huge group of people think that the Conservatives don't care about them and have had to suffer in a way that should never have happened. And the government have been right to apologise for this. I think Sajid Javid will turn it round. I think the fact that he is from an immigrant family himself, he's the first ever Muslim Home Secretary. I'm proud that he's there. I'm proud that the Conservative Party appointed him. I think he will empathise with many different people in our country, whether they're immigrants or native British. But I think he will want a policy that is fair to the taxpayer and fair on immigration.
And is that part of the issue? I mean, there was a lot of talk yesterday online. He was the first ethnic minority person to be in one of the 4 big offices of state, and how significant this was. I'm personally not a fan of sort of the need to point out whether someone is a woman or gay or ethnic minority or any religion. I think we should just judge people for people, and I think that's how most voters think of it. But is there an element then that because of the colour of his skin, because of his ethnic minority background and his immigrant background of his family, that he will have an insight which the average white middle class Tory MP simply won't have? Because the reality is the Windrush policy went wrong because nobody seemed to understand that actually, white British people don't get stopped and asked for ID and don't get checked. No one was ever going to query whether they were British, whereas someone like Sajid, from his background, his parents could have that query over his own. Is that a unique experience he can bring to the cabinet?
Well, I think your first point is exactly right. I mean, it's very important that people are appointed on merit, not because of what their background is. And he has been appointed on merit. He's a brilliant administrator. He's a very hard worker. He's self-made, started from very humble origins and made a success of his life, both in business and in politics. And I think he's been a very good administrator in other departments that he has been Secretary of State to. So that's an important point. But I think because of his background, because his family was an immigrant family, I think he'll be able to understand much better and empathise with the difficulties that many immigrants face in our country. And I think he made that clear yesterday in the House of Commons when he said that he was not going to be using the word hostile environment. That doesn't mean he's going to be soft. He said he will deal with illegal immigration, which many of the public want dealt with, but they want a policy that's fair on immigration, but fair to the taxpayer and recognises the constraints on our infrastructure and the fact that we're a fairly small island.
But is anything realistically going to change? In terms of the amount of money to spend on the border forces and immigration staff, the quality of the staff at the Home Office, clear. I mean, it's clearly abject incompetence from the bottom to the top in that department in terms of actually putting together a policy. I mean, if any official in that department actually thought that it was government policy to send people out of this country, to put people out of this country or prevent them coming back into this country when they clearly had the right to be here, those people are idiots and shouldn't have a job. Or, frankly, they're borderline criminal in terms of what they've done to these people. Is a new Home Secretary coming in going to change any of that? There's not going to be a load more money. You're not going to have a complete change of staff. You're not going to have computer systems that work. You're not going to have a complete change in terms of the attitudes of those staff. What's going to be better than it was under Amber Rudd or indeed under Theresa May?
Well, clearly time will tell, but I think he's a very determined and good administrator. I think he'll make sure that the right people are in the right posts. I think he's very good in terms of value for money. He'll make sure that resources are spent properly. So of course, you will always need more funding, but it's also about how the kind of people who are in the key posts and also about how they spend the existing money. And I think he showed a determination yesterday in the House of Commons that his priority was to get to grips with the Windrush saga, which has been terrible for the people concerned. And I think that he will do it, but of course time will tell.
Well, indeed. Now, the question is, of course, will Sajid Javid carry on this policy of, not hostile environment for legal immigrants? But again, I'm not quite sure what environment we want to offer people who shouldn't be in this country, and why we shouldn't have a 100% target of removals. But in terms of also policies on, say, immigration, net immigration levels of people who are here and arrive in this country completely legally, do you think that he should carry on and continue the policy of aiming for net immigration of in the tens of thousands, i.e., under 100,000 a year?
Well, I think the key thing will be for him. I mean, we will get control of immigration after we leave the European Union. And what I think the government needs to do is actually decide what kind of immigration we need for our country, what is good for our country, what also is affordable, given that we're already a crowded island with very little space in our major cities. And then, but not make sure that if we do have targets, that those targets don't just turn to go after the law-abiding or the easy case, which is, and I suspect what happened under Windrush is that the Home Office was so determined to fulfil its targets that they seemed an easy case to go and do. And the people who are law-abiding, who may have partners and spouses here, have to go through hoop after hoop in terms of getting their immigration status. So he's right to stop. We've got to stop illegal immigration. Often these people are trafficked. It's entirely immoral. It's immoral it's unfair for the people who are here in our country illegally. It's often immoral for the immigrants themselves. But we have to decide as a nation what kind of immigration we want, what we can afford, and what will be good for our country.
I mean, and can I also bring you into the House of Lords? I know you were a Remain campaigner who has absolutely accepted the Brexit referendum results and believes we should be leaving the EU. No ifs, no buts. What do you make of the House of Lords last night, a vote which basically took away the no deal option for Theresa May? She said a no deal is better than a bad deal. Basically, we're going to be stuck with possibly a bad deal or staying in the EU. Do you think that unelected peers should be having a say over Brexit?
Well, they can have a say, but I have to say I'm pretty disgusted. I passionately believe that we have to follow the democratic will of the people, because that's what was decided in the referendum. Otherwise, we really undermine trust in our democracy, and I think that will cause huge mistrust in many areas around the country. And what I really found disgusting was one of the peers, I forget his name, started comparing what the will of the people, what had happened in terms of the referendum with Nazi Germany.
This was Lord Roberts of Llandudno. He claimed during the debate the UK could follow the path of Nazi Germany unless the Prime Minister's powers were curtailed.
As someone from a Jewish background, my father was an immigrant here himself. I had members in the concentration camps. That was real Nazi Germany. It makes me sick that a peer could talk in such a way. And it's the trivialization of the real evil of Nazi Germany. What's happening in Britain is quite the opposite. We're the greatest democracy in the world. We are the land of Magna Carta. We had a parliamentary vote to have a referendum. Now, I took one view, which was different from the result. However, the people voted. It was a clear result. Many constituencies in the country, and my constituency in Harlow in Essex, 68% voted to leave. To actually link any of that to the evils of Hitler, I think it just shows the lengths that some of these people are going to, unelected people trying to frustrate what the democratic result was. It is they who are the unelected, creating an unelected dictatorship, not what is happening in the House of Commons or what the Prime Minister is doing.
Robert Halfon, just finally, is Theresa May safe in her job? She's lost Michael Fallon, she lost Priti Patel, Damien Green, now Amber Rudd, all senior members of her cabinet. Three of those big allies of hers in the cabinet. It's also the threat from the Brexit Secretary David Davis that he could go if the government backs down and allows us to stay in a form of customs union. Is Theresa May still going to be Prime Minister by Christmas?
Well, I think that the Prime Minister is a bit like Zebedee in the Magic Roundabout. She sort of, whatever happens, whatever storms come her way, she sort of just jumps out of the box. I used to watch it all the time as a child, and Magic Roundabout, and you can't help but admire her resilience. I mean, every government goes through storms. Government is about a ship sailing to a destination. You're buffeted by storms almost on a daily basis. Previous governments under Labour had Home Secretaries resign and senior Secretaries of State have to leave office for one thing or another. So I think it's right that the Prime Minister's there. I think she's resilient. She's tried, despite the House of Lords, she's trying to get Brexit through, as the people voted for. Unemployment is at its lowest level since the 1970s. We've got the national living wage, millions of apprentices in our country. So, she's doing the things that matter to people, and people will always, senior people will always come and go for one reason or another.